We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome to another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast alongside Israel Gutierrez and Amin Elhassan. I'm Jorge Sedano. You know what, boys? I'm just excited, not because of what Steph did to CP3, though that was obviously very exciting, too. We're going to hate hard already out of the gate here on CP3, who is one of the better defenders.
Hate hard.
As a point guard, but that still was kind of embarrassing. But we'll get to that in a second. I'm just happy we have a rivalry. I know that we try to manufacture this stuff, but Doc is sniping at Kerr. Kerr is sniping back. These teams hate each other. Curry embarrasses CP3. I just feel like in general, this is the one series I want to see the most every single time of all these series that are out there potentially.
Yeah, I was at the game yesterday, and the atmosphere was definitely electric. You can tell that not just between the two teams, but the fans. I mean, halftime, we're walking into the back to get the free ice cream that they have in the media room there. And I swear to God, like just in the middle of the aisle, there's a dude wearing a Curry jersey and a dude wearing a Blake Griffin jersey. And they're just yelling at each other. And the one guy is saying, the Clipper guy is saying, scoreboard, scoreboard. And the other guy was saying, standings, standings. And at first I thought they were friends just kind of giving each other a hard time. And I realized, no, these are two complete strangers going at it like in the lower bowl of Staples for, what pretty much is a meaningless preseason game. So this is definitely a contentious rivalry, and my only regret is I don't think we're going to see them match up in the playoffs.
I know.
Yeah, I like the rivalry. I do. It makes me laugh sometimes. Like, I don't know, some of this Blake Griffin stuff. Like the stuff that happens to Blake Griffin against that team happens to Blake Griffin against every team. But yesterday in particular, it was just so much fun because now it appears Steph Curry and Chris Paul like to go at each other because they were going at it. There was that one stretch where Curry hit that one really quick catch-and-shoot three, and then CP3 went right back at him for a while, and then I think the Clippers went kind of up by like 4 or 5 at that point. But, I mean, the crossover was ridiculous. The behind-the-back, the double, was it a double behind the back? I don't even know what we want to call it.
Double behind the back.
That was one of the most memorable moves I've ever seen, and I've got a few of them. Like, there's some that just come directly to mind when I think of some of the best, like, I don't know if you want to call them playground moves or making guys look foolish type of moves, but y'all remember, I know you remember this, when Chris Webber went, was it Jake Sakalidis? He took him to the
put him in the blender.
Wrap the pass around his back and then threw it out to, I want to say, Doug Christie for a jumper. Like, this one's right up there with that just, like, playground style. Because even Steph said after the game, when he saw what happened, he knew he had to shoot it. Because you have to complete that. Like, if you don't finish that, then that's a big-time failure.
No. Well, Andre Miller went through one of those a couple years ago, too, right? Like, who did it to him that he was just completely embarrassed? Like, he ended up doing like a MC Hammer split, basically, on the court in the middle of the paint. Now, remember, that happened to Andre Miller, too. Back in 2008, Derrick Rose, when he was Derrick Rose, basically did that to him. And the reason I always remember that happened to Andre Miller, because the same week, it happened to me, what happened to Andre Miller. Now,
breaking news, breaking news.
Yes. Breaking news.
Our timing.
I got embarrassed and crossed up like Andre Miller. Yeah, Andre Miller. I got crossed up like him. Israel will remember this. Because we used to play for like 5 or 6 years. We used to play kind of like a media game, like a full court media game for like 2 hours, 3 hours at night on like Tuesday nights back in Miami, and it got kind of intense, I would say at times. And one time I was on a fast break. I was alone, and a guy named Chris Stock, who works for the AP, he also writes for he has his own website, that college football website, InsideTheU.com. He's really good. He crossed me up, and I did a MC Hammer split like Andre Miller did with Derrick Rose, and I got clowned on. It was hilarious. And to this day, Shandell Richardson, who covers the Heat for the Sun Sentinel in South Florida, still reminds me. If you go on his timeline today, he brought it up when about the CP3 thing today to me and Chris Stock. It's on his Twitter, and I still think it's funny. But Iz was actually there to see me do the MC Hammer Andre Miller split that one day.
He was on his rear end. He was definitely on his rear end.
Guys, we actually have sound of that happening to you, George. Here it is.
Oh yeah.
His ankle. Oh my God. Yeah. Is there a medic in the house? Yeah. Oh, he just got crossed over.
Yeah, you know what? I got embarrassed. It was funny, but to this day, I wasn't so happy that day, but I could laugh at it now, like 6-7 years later.
Let me just say something. I'm really upset because I really did some investigative journalism today. I had uncovered the entire event. Like we had that audio queued up. I was just waiting for us to be talking about something serious and then cut it off right there to say, now George, I hear you have some experience doing this. And what is George?
Yeah,
let this be a lesson to everyone. If you want to counteract the hate hard, if you want to diffuse the hate hard, what you do is you accept it, embrace it before I can even say it. Because now I'm feeling all unfulfilled. I'm sitting here like, man, I had a great hit hard to hit George with, and he beat me to the punch. Congratulations.
Yeah,
you know what I'm glad
about. I see you scouring my Twitter like those NFL scouts are following Jameis Winston. Exactly. That's what you're doing.
I got sources. I'm talking to people. I'm DMing people like, yo, man, wait, give me the scoop.
I'm glad I don't have one of those stories because I've never been through stuff like that.
No, but I do remember. I do have a fun Izzy story from those games. Izzy got so mad one time that I think we lost. I mean, we played for 6-7 years, but Izzy got so mad one time. I was on a team and we lost on some like miracle shot, like just like some guy got the ball out his rear end, and it was a tight game, back and forth, just 1 point lead each way the whole way to like 15 or 21 or whatever we were playing, going full court. And he got so mad that he did like Dirk Nowitzki in the 2006 NBA Finals, where he grabbed the ball and just kicked it into the stands after the game was done. That's what Israel Gutierrez did after one of those pickup games.
I don't even remember that game in particular. But, losing is not fun.
Man.
But anyway, underrated crosser over, since we're still talking about that. I don't know if he was underrated at the time, but it's one of those guys you don't really always bring to mind. Steve Francis. Steve Francis, he lived to cross somebody up. He had a double crossover on Troy Hudson one time, I remember, which he just looked like he was toying with him. It was ridiculous.
But you know what's funny? You know what's funny when it comes to that? Like, there's a lot of dudes throughout history that are pretty good at crossing people up. Curry and Kyrie, more than anyone, have probably the best functional crossovers. Like, they actually get places and separation, and they're good enough shooters. Like, I think Steve Francis, there's a lot of Steve Francis highlights where he just clowned people and then takes a mid-range jump shot and misses it. Because, he wasn't that great of a shooter. So it was, those two guys, Kyrie and Steph, there's something special about when they do it. It just seems like they don't miss.
Where do you rate Jason Williams' functionality with his crossover? Because he was nasty early on. And one of the ones that come to mind automatically with him is on Gary Payton his rookie year, where he just went left to right on the fast break and left him in the dust.
You know what? The funny thing is there's a great parallel between that and what happened last night. Obviously, Curry's a much better player and much more advanced in his career than Jason Williams was at that time. But it was the same thing. Gary Payton was that dude where people didn't even try to dribble around him. I'm just going to give the ball up. You don't do that. You don't mess around with glove. He'll make you look stupid. He'll pick your pocket and let you know about it, et cetera, et cetera. And Chris Paul's kind of that guy for us today as far as the premier defensive point guard, super smart, super quick hands, quick feet. He's not as explosive as he used to be, but just the best we have. And Steph was just like, oh, is this the best? Oh, word? And he hit him with that. He hit him so hard that he crossed him up later in that game, and people don't even remember that one. He crossed him up bad later that game, and people are not even talking about that.
The memes on this one are hilarious. I mean, my favorite one is when he's in a breakdancing battle. He's in a breakdancing battle, and they're talking about, he forgot his cardboard, though.
I like the Matrix one, but my favorite one is what's that game? Left foot red, right foot blue. What was the name of that? Twister. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one that Chris Paul actually retweeted that Kevin Hart sent to him. He said, of the 8 of these that you sent me, this was the funniest one. And he put a hashtag in there, he got me. Which is great. It's an acknowledgement when you sort of accept being punked like Sedano did in this podcast before Amin brought it up, like it makes you seem more likable. It's just a good, fun, sportsmanlike way to approach it. But deep inside it's killing him that he's on that end of it because he's gotten a lot of guys too.
Is he? He was mad. You could tell because first of all, here's what happened. It happened, and there was like a break in play, and people went to their benches. The whole crowd was, and mind you, the crowd was pretty, like I said earlier, it was contentious. It was probably 60% Clipper fans, 40% or 65-35 Warriors fans, and like they were going at each other the whole game. That play happened, and the entire crowd goes, "Oh!" And then I swear to God, I don't think I've ever seen this. Definitely not with a good team. Everybody in the crowd, whether you were in a Blake Griffin jersey, a Chris Paul jersey, a Steph Curry jersey, whatever, they all did the international ref sign for replay with the finger in a circle and looking at the jumbotron. And Sam Cassell came out for the timeout. And you know how the coaches convene kind of away from the bench at first? Sam Cassell staring at the jumbotron. Everybody's looking at that jumbotron because we were all waiting. Like, I know Staples Center, I know it was an away player, but you got to replay that one. They didn't, which is probably good for the guy who runs the jumbotron because I know Chris Paul would have hunted him down had he showed that thing. It was disgusting.
The bench reaction, probably the best bench reaction I've seen so far. Because Leandro Barbosa went all rest in peace on us. He's like, I can die happily now. I've seen the greatest play ever. So it was fantastic.
I talked to him after the game, and I said, "Hey, man, you blew up all over." He didn't know. He didn't know that he was on camera. He thought it was just them on the bench. But it was one of those nights where it's like there are plays that people will remember forever. And I don't mean to be facetious. I'm not saying that this is the most important play, but like things like John Starks' dunk against the Bulls. Yeah. Like that's just one of those plays no one ever forgets. Derrick Rose dunking on Goran Dragic. No one forgets that one. Like it's there. It's something we're always gonna remember. This is gonna be one of those plays because again, Chris Paul or the Gary Payton crossover, the Jason Williams crossover. Because Chris Paul, his status as like he is. We just ranked him number 1 in our ESPN thing this week, the number 1 point guard, and he was just like right there. He got humbled. He got turned into every other scrub on the court in every playground in America.
And the fact that it is this rivalry that we were talking about, like it only makes it, that much better.
Oh man.
I love the fact that Doc and Kerr are kind of sniping at each other a little bit. Like I don't think we have enough of that stuff in the league anymore. Like in the 90s, I feel like we had it a ton.
I think that's playful. I think Doc is being funny and
but
the way it's presented.
It's still good theater.
Yeah, no, the way it's presented is that they're going back and forth at each other, but they're just joking around. Like obviously Doc didn't mean that.
I think they have a good sense of humor, but as this old saying goes, in every joke there's a kernel of truth, right? Like there is a part, I think, of the Clippers that is extremely resentful of the Warriors. And I'm not just saying like on the court, like the Clippers.
Well, why wouldn't they be? I mean, they basically leapfrogged them. The Clippers were supposed to be the next great team, and they had a couple missing parts, and they lost to Memphis, and now they're trying to get it again. Meanwhile, this team has become the favorites to win a championship. And, I don't think I've never said that in my life about the Warriors, and now so the Clippers, they're sort of a little brother again in the state, not necessarily in their city, but in the state. And, now the fans are going to be down there like they were, and that brings us to what Blake Griffin said about the home court advantage. Now, we've been talking all year long about home court not being what it used to be for whatever reason this year. There's a bunch of theories and what have you. But this one, this one's interesting to me because the Clippers are they're Lob City. They're supposed to be highlight factory. They're supposed to be so fan-friendly, and the Warriors has kind of overtaken them. And in their own arena, you can't tell which team you have more fans of. I know obviously it's an exaggeration. It was clearly a Clippers crowd, but there's more Warriors fans than there should be.
Here's the thing, and I've only been to a handful of Clipper games. But I think at times that Clipper games can be and they've been good during the stretches that I've been there. You can seriously hear like a pin drop at times during those games. Yeah. And I know that I've heard, their great fan Clipper Darrell. Like, I've heard him be the one guy yelling stuff, like and I don't think I've heard that in any arena in the NBA. Okay, for as little attendance as some of these arenas are getting, I've never heard just one guy yell out where I'm sitting in press row and I can hear the one guy yelling. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that, and I've heard it there. So I don't know if Blake bringing that up makes sense now. I mean, I don't know. Some people think that maybe he's just kind of doing that to kind of mask some of the issues maybe his own team is having, and he's putting the blame there. But I do think he does have somewhat of a point.
I think here's the thing. There's several things. First of all, George, you're absolutely right. The Clipper games are kind of weird in the sense that they do have points in the game. I'm not saying the whole game, because there are other arenas where that happens. But there are points in the game where it gets deathly quiet. And I get the feeling that when Clipper Darrell does his thing, out of respect, everybody shuts up. You know, so he'll do, here we go, Clippers, here we go, and then everyone claps. Because they do follow and do the call and repeat thing with him. But they let him kind of be the one voice when he's talking. But the other thing is, last night, first of all, it wasn't like that. They were electric. Because the Clippers came out first, and they came out hard, and the crowd was into it. They wanted, like, to kind of chase the Warriors out of town and out of this building. The other thing is, the Warriors fans, there weren't that many of them. But the thing is, they're loud, and they have good timing. I'll just say that. They have really good timing when they say things. But the most important thing I got to say is, I've been lucky enough to go to several Warriors games. I've been Warriors in Phoenix. I've been to Warriors at Boston, Warriors in Brooklyn, Warriors now in LA. The Warriors, regardless of how partisan the crowd is for the home team, Steph Curry does something every game where if you don't ooh and ah and go nuts, you're just not a basketball fan. Boston, like I said, Boston is probably one of the most partisan crowds I've been to in the league. He had that huge second half, and when he started pulling up, you hear the gasp. Yeah, he's got everybody on the win. So it's not. I don't know if it's so much as the Clippers don't have a good home crowd, so much as on a night like tonight, we saw some things that, again, your body, it is involuntary. You're going to react to the things you're watching, no matter how much you hate Steph Curry or hate the Warriors or hate Steve Kerr.
I've seen him in Miami. In Miami last year, he had last year and this year, he had a couple of huge shooting nights, and the crowd was into it then. Sort of like you mentioned, oohing and eyeing. I think it's maybe a little different because you're closer. You're in California, so there might be 20% more Warriors fans than there are in other arenas or what have you. So I mean, I get his frustration. It's probably not just the Warriors fans that are in there that are upsetting him. Like George said, some of those games are really quiet. So, but yeah, I think it's just kind of you're mad for the wrong reasons there, Blake.
Yeah. You're mad because you got beat. That's what you're mad.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Just like
I think that's part of masking that.
Remember Markieff Morris when the Spurs went up there and killed the Suns? Now, he's right. The Suns do have like a lukewarm crowd. But I'm sorry, when you lose by 40, that wasn't a crowd, homie. That was you.
All right. Coming up next, KD talks about his future in OKC. We'll get to that next here in just 60 seconds on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Welcome back to the NBA Lockdown podcast alongside Israel Gutierrez and Amin Elhassan. I'm Jorge Sedano. So, guys, KD says he wants to stay in OKC, sort of, right? I don't know if it's coincidental that he's making these comments on the heels of the latest injury and all the talk that surrounds him, certainly with his free agency impending, not this summer, but the following summer. But he did make a comment where I feel like everyone's talking about, he said he wants to stay with one team, that it'd be cool, like Kobe and Tim Duncan and Dirk, that stuff is awesome. But I don't think anyone's really talking about this part where right after that he says, but you never know what the future holds sometimes. I'm like, okay, that kind of is a telling part of the equation here.
Well, listen, if it was LeBron James saying this exact same thing last year, we all would have said, oh, he's out the door, he's gone. We all would have speculated.
Yeah.
Like when he wrote that birthday message to Dwayne, said, you never know what the future holds, but you'll always be my boy, and all that stuff. Yeah, so I can see that. But it sounded to me like where he said, you never know what the future holds sometimes and how teams may feel about you after a while. So maybe that means them moving him or them being afraid of his foot injury and then, trade. Maybe he's just kind of opening his eyes to that or, because there's going to be no indication that the Thunder are going to show any signs of, turning on Kevin Durant. He is the Oklahoma City Thunder because, again, if he leaves, you don't know what the heck Westbrook's going to do in 2017. That whole franchise can fall apart. They do a lot to make sure that those players feel like they are the most important people on the planet and that they're treated well and that, they know that if they're going to have people come to OKC, that reputation has to be we pamper our players.
Right.
So, I don't think there's any reason why they would turn on him, but it is an interesting little, nugget he drops in there just to kind of cover his back for those who might say down the road, oh, you said you wanted to be here forever.
It's funny. We talked about this on True Hoop TV Live last week, and I think more than any other organization, Spurs included, the Oklahoma City Thunder have the modern-day version of Hoya paranoia. They have everybody in that locker room believing it's us against the world. Those people out there are bad people. They don't want what's good for you. That's why we protect you from the media. That's why we do all these things, and we're all about, treating players right and doing the right thing here. And that's kind of my thing why people say, oh, maybe Presti will shop Durant at some point. I said, unless Durant walks into that office and tells me, Sam, I'm not staying, I can't do that because if you do that, you break that trust. You break that culture that they've built so much about it's us against the world. Because then if you're Russell Westbrook, you take a look, you say, well, if they did that to KD, what's to say they won't do that to me? And that's, it all falls apart from there. But having said that, in the words of Larry David, that's exactly what Kevin Durant did. He just hit him with the having said that, you never know. And that's, it's kind of sad that the buzzards are circling. And when I say buzzards, I mean people like Jorge Sedano, who's convinced, ladies and gentlemen, that it's going to be Kevin Love in 2015, Durant in 2016, Russell Westbrook in 2017 in L.A. George, take it away.
That's a bit much.
Listen, I'm telling you that those three guys are going to hook up. Okay, they're going to hook up in Los Angeles, and I feel pretty confident about it. Now, look, could a team like the Knicks and Phil Jackson step in and woo one of those guys? Maybe. Could Pat Riley do the same in Miami? Maybe. But I have a feeling that those three guys have a little bit of a bond, especially because Russ and Kevin are tight, and Russ and KD are tight. And I think that he's kind of the guy that keeps those three together, and makes those three come together. So I have a conspiracy theory. That's all it is. Oh, yeah. It is reckless speculation on my part that I think all three will end up together. And maybe Kevin doesn't go this year. Maybe he goes in 16 with KD. But I do think all three of those guys will play together at some point.
You know what's funny, George? That isn't even the most reckless speculation I've heard this week. I was on our affiliate radio station.
But it's close. It's close, though.
It's close. No, it's close. No, listen to this. I was on an affiliate radio station in Phoenix yesterday, and my guy, Dan Bickley, columnist for the Arizona Republic, he's got a radio show there, and he asked me, he said, what about rumblings that a team like the Knicks could be in the running for Kevin Durant? And I said, where are these rumblings coming from? Are they coming from Phil Jackson? Like the idea that the Knicks can sign anybody at this point. I mean, isn't this
I don't buy it.
Some Knicks fans.
I don't buy the Knicks part of it. I mean, but I know. Could it happen?
But, yeah. No, it couldn't. It can't happen. I'm telling you right now, it can't happen. It cannot happen. There's nothing about that franchise that screams, well managed. Like guys are not throwing away their careers for a zip code. That's what I keep telling people. Like Durant, I'm not saying Durant's not gonna leave, but he ain't gonna leave for New York. The Lakers even have at least a recent track record. Like, we've had some hard times, but we were pretty good 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and the same people in charge trust us. You can say that. The Knicks have had like 17,000 GMs and 400,000 coaches and 600,000 different systems and a crazy
That's a record.
It is a record. It is a record.
Well, for an area code, though, because if you got the 212 phone number, you're kind of a bad.
Yeah,
That is true.
Word to Lane Bennis can't get that 347 or 646. I need that 212.
Yeah, well, we have those situations in Miami. You know, you can't have a 786 area code. I mean, what are you doing?
I've had a 305 number my whole life.
I got 305.
And I live in Broward County, which is 954, but I'm not giving
Right. Israel is so attached to the 305 that he won't even give it up. He doesn't even live in the 305 anymore.
Can we imagine Pitbull saying Mr. 786? It just doesn't happen.
No, never.
I bet you he's got a 786 cell phone number, though. I bet you he does.
He wasn't big enough, huh? When the 305 area codes are going out, he still wasn't a big deal.
I feel like Pitbull could call and get a 305, though, if he wanted. Let's be honest. He's Pitbull. He's Mr. Worldwide now. He's not just Mr. 305 anymore. Maybe he's got a burner phone, a 786 burner phone. You never know.
If he's Mr. Worldwide, does that mean he's Mr. 011? Oh,
that's true. He could be Mr. 011 now. Excellent job,
blowing my mind right now.
So anyway, I just think that I do think that Kevin could be out. Like I just don't think this bodes well for OKC. I don't think it bodes well for them on a number of fronts. But also, if I'm Kevin, I'm also going to be a lot more cautious next season. And the worst case scenario is 6 months for him. That puts you up right against training camp. And if I'm him, considering that I'm potentially going up for the biggest payday in the history of the sport, I'm absolutely being extra cautious, and that may not be good.
I don't think it has anything to do with the payday. It just has to do with his career. Like this can't be a recurring thing, and I'm sure doctors have told him and the Thunder. Well, yeah, but I'm sure the doctors have told him and the Thunder that the healing. I mean, the time off of it is the most important part about this, because in that portion of the foot, you don't get much blood supply, so you just need time. And this is why I said this on Sunday on the NBA Lockdown radio show. I wasn't blaming the Thunder for putting him back out there early after the initial 6 weeks, because, all indications are 6 weeks is enough, and he was cleared to play and everything else. But with this fracture in particular, if they weren't in a already battle for their playoff lives after 6 weeks in the season because it started off so poorly, they probably could have considered giving him another week, another 2 weeks, just to make 100% sure, because this is such a tricky injury. Now that he's gone through the bone graft procedure, he probably needs to go 7 months, 7.5, 8 months before they say, with 100% certainty, we've given him enough time. There's no way, if he plays right now, there'll be any sort of recurrence of it. It would just have to be some crazy coincidence. You have to go probably beyond the projected recovery time just to be 100% safe.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing is it's not paint by numbers, right? So people heal differently. Some people heal slowly, some people heal quickly. He might be within the conservative estimates, 5-6 months. He might be healed by then. He may not. He may still be limping and all that stuff. So it all depends. I think, we have so Dr. Addix, when they first announced the injury a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Addix said, with the screw, it's hard to do an MRI or an X-ray to see if the bone is healed or not. So pretty much your only indication is the patient. Is he feeling soreness, discomfort? That means it hasn't healed correctly. And sure enough, that's what happened. They have to do the bone graft. So in that same sense, like, we have tools and methods, or the doctors have tools and methods to figure out whether this thing is healed or not. It's not like they need to go like an egg timer. Well, let's give it an extra 10 minutes just to make sure. Like, they know. They'll take a look and they'll do the test, and he'll be able, obviously he'll start doing corrective exercises and PT, so he'll know also his strength, how he feels comfortable, and they'll have some indication.
Is it fair to say that Derrick Rose is not a fast healer? Because I'm looking at a tweet from Nick Friedel from ESPN Chicago, and it says Rose on if he's still optimistic about a regular season return, quote, who knows, who knows. So it seems like we're playing that same song and dance with Derrick Rose again, too.
Oh, man. I feel sorry for that kid.
It's a slow dance, for sure, with him.
Yeah. #HateHard.
Ouch. You guys are cold-blooded, man. Oh.
All right, let's get into the last discussion today. Because, no podcast would be complete without a little LeBron situation and drama in Cleveland. So Brian Windhorst was on the Bill Simmons Bill Don't Lie podcast and I guess we were talking about all this Kevin Love stuff. Why are you laughing? You don't think that's a funny name, I think, for a podcast?
I know. I was laughing the other day when he mentioned it. I forget what I was listening to, but he brought it up. Bill did. It just makes me laugh, man.
It's a funny name. I think it's a great name.
It's funny.
Off topic. What's the difference between Bill Don't Lie and the BS report? Is there a difference?
What's the difference?
I don't know.
Hold on,
Bill
Josh.
Don't Lie is NBA only.
Yeah, NBA only. Now, Josh, you're telling me that it was the BS report, and I know it was labeled as such, but when I said that yesterday on my radio show, they told me no, it was Bill Don't Lie.
On the website, it says the BS report with Winderman and State of the Cavs. I'm sorry, what did I say? Winderman?
Winderman, yeah. Wrong NBA beat writer.
Yeah, it says it right here. It's on Grantland. BS report, Windhorst on the State of the Cavs.
All right, so it was the BS report or Bill Don't Lie, but either way, it was Windhorst, okay? So Windhorst was on with Simmons, and they were talking about LeBron and Blatt's relationship and how Blatt, he's supposed to be this offensive guru and genius, and I don't think LeBron really cares about any of that. Here's Brian Windhorst with Bill Simmons on one of those podcasts.
The Princeton offense that David Blatt installed in the preseason, they just threw that out. Right. What typically happens, and this has been happening for like 3 months now, what typically happens is LeBron will take the ball and LeBron will call the play. David Blatt will see what play LeBron calls, and then he'll repeat it to the team. That happens on a regular basis.
Okay, there are a couple of things. Obviously, and I don't know if LeBron's calling the plays is as big a deal, because guys call plays and freelance stuff all the time in the NBA. I think the funny part is that LeBron will call the play, and then Blatt has to recall the play as if he's the one calling the play, because he needs to feel like he's the coach here, which I think is pretty freaking funny. Like, it's a long line of, we've had this discussion, right? Like, on this podcast, we talked about how when Blatt won his first NBA game, he told everyone in the locker room, hey, guys, I've won 700 games in Europe or whatever it was. And it's like, dude, okay, we get it. Like, you're the coach, but whatever. Guys call plays. It's not that big a deal. Why do you feel the need to kind of insert yourself here and mark your territory? I think that's funny. But I'll ask you guys. I'll start with you. Does LeBron calling the plays even matter? Like, who cares? Does it matter? Like, I don't know if it matters. I'm kind of like, who cares?
Like you said, him calling plays doesn't matter. Steve Nash called a lot of plays for us in Phoenix. The difference is, Mike knew, okay, Steve Nash is brilliant, and he more often than not, he's going to call the right play. Let him call the play. And maybe, we'll call a timeout, we'll draw something up. But other than that, play for play, they got it under control, so to speak. We went through this in practice. They know how to do it in the game. The idea that Blatt would call the play after, it's kind of like the old line from Friday. I got mind control over Debo. When he come by, I start talking. But when he leaves, I start talking again. Like, that's, man. When I was a kid, I used to do that with my little sister. I'd tell her, I have my control over you. And then she'd get up and walk out the room and say, yeah, walk out the room. See? You did it because I told you to do it. Right? It's on the most optimistic way, it's childish and petty and stupid. In the most kind of negative light, it's really insecure.
All right, well, I got a couple. First is a question. It's like, it could be possible, that he's signaling the play also to make sure everyone sees it as well. That's probably a stretch. But this is just, amateur psychoanalysis. But you realize, and George, I think you brought this up, how he always says he's not a rookie coach, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just some insecurities there where it's just like, all right, I don't want this to look this way. Let me call the play. And obviously that's what Windhorst is implying here. But based on his past, or based on what we've seen from him this year, it could be true. But wouldn't that be so transparent where you kind of lose respect for him? Like, I don't know. I just feel like this couldn't be going very well between players and Coach Blatt if something like this was out there and so evident. you just can't have a lack of respect for your coach, and I think this would bring about a lack of respect, no?
Well, here's the thing, a couple of things. Number one is actually what it smacks to me of is, I'm glad you brought up the whole 700 wins thing. It reminds me of college coaches. They can't live in a world where the players actually have control, right? It's like, oh, then what are they paying me all these millions for while these kids are playing for free? So they have to like call every play, even though, you know, that's not exactly the best strategy. So maybe I'm thinking maybe it's the same kind of mentality coming from Europe, where the coaches have so much more control. This idea that I have relinquished control is too scary for him to go through. But the other thing I was thinking about is it's really not that bad. If LeBron's running plays that you guys drew up, or that you were approved, it's not that bad. I remember it said I don't know if this rumor is true or not, but this is I've heard it from pretty good sources. When Baron Davis was on the Clippers, him and Mike Dunleavy were feuding so hard that Mike Dunleavy would call the play from the bench, Baron would look at him, acknowledge him, and literally call the exact opposite play. like so if Mike Dunleavy's calling for pick up, like fist high, pick and roll, whatever, Baron will nod his head, look at the court, and say, "All right, guys, let's go in the post up over here." Like just
it's funny you should say that. Didn't he have a quote? Baron Davis just had a quote talking about what it's like acting as a basketball player as opposed to playing it, and he said, "Oh, I can do this. It's like playing for Mike Dunleavy. He used to tell you what to do with every dribble, so I know exactly what it's like to be told what to do every single time."
#hate hard.
I mean, it was.
I'm not going to comment on Baron Davis because he thought I was really annoying when I was asking him about stuff the other day when I was interviewing. So I'm going to let y'all just hang on this with Baron. Baron, I love you, but I'm going to omit myself on this one because I don't want any more issues with you, and I do still love you. Go ahead.
Did he really say that?
Here.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious.
Right now. It's Sin City Saints star, not just Baron Davis. He's a Sin City Saints star, and his quote was.
Is that a movie or is that a record?
Here, the question was. I have no idea.
He's a star though.
But he's the star of it. It's a Yahoo, somewhat lost amidst the hype of return of Community. Yahoo premiered the original basketball comedy Sin City Saints last week. And he said, the question was, now playing basketball on film, in this show, you have to convincingly look like a player, but you also have to deal with camera setups and all that. What is the different discipline of playing basketball for a TV show or for the TV camera? Quote, it's kind of like playing basketball for Mike Dunleavy. He tells you to do everything out there anyway. You feel like a robot. So I was pretty much used to it. So when we did get in the arena and the cameras were on, I was like, "Oh, I'm used to being told what to do every time I dribble the ball. So this won't bother me at all."
Oh, man.
That is kind of funny.
It was such a hate hard from a distance,
Josh,
and
hit the drop, Josh.
#hate hard.
Not only from a distance, but the timing. It's like the grudge that will never end.
Dude, I don't even know if I can tell this story on air. I've got one. I'll tell you guys off air. I've got one that's exactly like that, but I won't tell it on air. But no, this is the day where everybody else's hate hard was harder than mine. I sat and prepped for my hate hard today, and here you guys killed Derrick Rose, and then Baron Davis killed Mike Dunleavy. I'm like, man, must be.
You're slacking today. You're slacking today. All right, so we've found ourselves kind of at an interesting point with the Cavs where we're talking about Kevin Love and LeBron and if they're besties or not. We've been talking about Blatt and their relationship. They're winning, right? I mean, that kind of is all that matters, right? But I think at some point the Love thing, like LeBron made some comments recently about he only has 3 friends in the league, right? Or 3 great friends, which is Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. And everyone else just teammates, and he rides for them, yada yada. And Kyrie and Kev are in that same situation. And then he talked about how, look, in that Cleveland.com column, we talked about where, look, us three guys, for us to reach our goals, all 3 of us need to be able to be on the same page on the court, yada yada. I'm paraphrasing, but he was something like that. And I get what he's saying, and they don't have to be best friends, him and Love and Kyrie. But it just seems like the Love part of it, yeah, okay, you have to get him involved. I do agree with that. But it doesn't seem like he's getting involved very much, whether it's Blatt sitting him in the fourth quarters, or now we know maybe LeBron sitting him in the fourth quarters, or just not getting him the ball in the right places. Like I did this anecdote yesterday on my show about how his clutch numbers are down big time. And you can't just say it's because he's the third wheel anymore. I mean, they're down significantly, specifically the points, the rebounds. I mean, he's getting about 25% of what he was getting last year when he was with Minnesota as the man. And last I checked, that doesn't equate to 33%. Like, there's still more that Kevin Love can be doing. So I just think it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of talk about this team and what they can achieve. But I think come playoff time, there's always going to be trials and tribulations, and they're going to find a time where they're going to need Kevin Love.
Amen. But here's the thing. I do think there's going to be a game, or maybe several games in the playoffs where it's like, okay, I'm glad we have Kevin Love and not Ryan Anderson, because he's going to have one of those games. It's just going to happen. It's how it always happens, because here's what happens in the playoffs. You play the team that's been sitting for 3-4 days and literally dissecting everything about you and game plan, trying to take away what you like to do. And then whatever happens that first game, they're going to tweak and make adjustments. So part of playoff success is being able to come up with adjustments either that they can adjust to or continue to make adjustments to adjust for their adjustments. And, this is going to be actually the big test for David Blatt, to be honest, is can he do that? We all know you can play your way, which is how they're playing. Can they start to make those adjustments and tweaks? And one of those tweaks is going to have to be, I think, Kevin Love, because teams are going to game plan it for, well, they never use him in this manner, so this is what we're going to give up. We will concede the Kevin Love post-up, or we will concede the Kevin Love wide-open jump shot, the Kevin Love pick and pop, to make sure that we don't give up penetration to Kyrie, to LeBron, etc. So at some point, if the Cavs are going to overcome, Kevin Love has to have a great game here or there.
Yeah, and he's shown, and they have shown lately, the capability. You know what? This to allow him to have a good game, but whatever. This sort of I don't know if, year from now, 2-3 years from now, we're all going to look back and say, oh, this was the narrative that drove us all in circles, the Kevin Love thing. And maybe he, ends up re-signing with Cavs, doesn't go anywhere and wins 2-3 championships. And we'll all just look back and say, wow, we really look silly. But even though Kevin Love didn't really help in this situation because he's helping push along that narrative a little bit. But just the other night, for example, against the Grizzlies, he only took 4 3-pointers. He was 10 of 13 from the field, had 22 points, 10 rebounds, even threw in a couple of blocks. Like, it seems like they are utilizing him in spurts, but more so maybe very recently, in the very recent past, than they had been before. And so maybe they are getting the message or what have you, and maybe, if his back is feeling better, he will be getting more of those looks. But, it's like, there's going to be times where, he might be necessary in that postseason. It makes me wonder, though, because, George, when you think back about that Miami Heat teams in the playoffs, there was never really an entire Chris Bosh game. There was more like Chris Bosh moments, like the 3 or 4 threes against Oklahoma City. But there weren't the Chris Bosh games, and I doubt there will be the Kevin Love games. Like, he might put up a 22 and 12, but that's going to be behind LeBron's 38, 9, and 7, and he's still going to be an afterthought.
Yeah, there was the Bosh game when he came back from the rib injury against Boston, and he battled KG, and then he hit a big 3 against Boston to clinch a game. Like, there were certainly plenty of Bosh moments, but I don't know if I think back, there was a great Bosh game. Even the block on Danny Green at the end after the Ray Allen shot. Like, there were plenty of moments. I don't know if there was a Bosh game for the third guy in that spot. All right, well, that'll do it for us today. Amin, I did spend some time with your boy Grant Hill, and he said to tell you, #HateHard and stop snitching.
You know what? I'm going to come on your show, George, and I'm going to address these wild rumors and allegations from this Grant Hill character. But before we go, I do want to give a birthday shout-out to my guy, Robin Lopez. Yes, the biggest fool of them all is born on April Fool's Day. So,
all right, well, then I have to give my sister a shout-out. Happy birthday, Lisette. It's her birthday, too.
Happy birthday, Lisette and Robin.
She doesn't fight mascots.
And if you missed the Grant Hill interview, you can just go on my Twitter timeline at Sedano ESPN, and there's a podcast up there with me and Grant Hill talking about. And Grant got deep, right? Grant got deep on some stuff. We had a good conversation, Grant and I. So you can check that out as well. It's NBA and basketball related. And, of course, always download this particular podcast at ESPN.com/PodCenter. Thanks to Izzy. Thanks to Amin. I'm Jorge Sedano. Follow Izzy on Twitter at Gutierrez.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, thanks Steph Curry. Thanks CP3.
And thanks to the internet. Thanks to the internet for all those
memes. Thanks memes. Yes. Follow Amin on Twitter at Amin ESPN as well, and me at Sedano ESPN. All right, we'll talk to you on Friday. You guys enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the PodCenter page on ESPNRadio.com.